I got licked. Let's talk about how licked I got.
You did Big Lick. We can talk about that.
I got licked.
You got licked.
Let's talk about how licked I got. Yeah, let's start there.
Sure. I'm interested to hear how it went because I got a couple updates at various stages, and then so I'm really interested to see how it came out in the end.
Yeah, so I don't know when this is coming out, but as we're recording this, last weekend was the Big Lick Comic Con, which, just for a recap for the casual A Billion Bad Ideas viewer, this is my first con in years, and so I was getting back into the swing of things, and you and I had talked about a lot of kind of different ways to prep for this Comic Con that was in Roanoke, Virginia, and my feedback is I have kind of three levels. And it's, how was the con? How was the con in terms of relationship to its vendors? And then how did my table work out? And so I'll go through these really quickly. So number one, how was the con? The con was actually way more well attended than I expected it to be. There were a lot of people there. It was unbelievable. So people were there. They were all out. There was some great cosplay. It's what I would consider a medium-sized con, but there was a steady stream of traffic. There were folks lined up out the door every morning before it opened up. It was really good.
That's excellent.
Yeah, it was also kind of surprising because of the celebrity guests this year. I think they had some. This is not the con's fault. I think they had some bad luck with some of the celebrity guests. We had talked, I think, about there was a big MASH reunion that was in the works. Unfortunately, Loretta Swit did die a couple months ago.
Call that their bad luck.
Yeah, I feel that's true.
Loretta's bad luck.
It's the world's bad luck, really.
Yeah, it's a big loss for us all.
Primarily her. Yes, you're right. So she, of course, wasn't able to make it based on that. And then Jamie Farr was supposed to be there, and then there was another gentleman from MASH who was, he was one of those side characters who I don't even remember the name of. But one of them had a family emergency, and one of them, I think, got sick or just called in sick. And so there actually ended up being no MASH people there. And it was this whole weird thing where, like, while Jamie Farr was still planning on being there, I guess his agent had told the con, like, you've got to have at least one other TV legend there because Jamie can't be the only one. It feels too weird. And so they got Tony Danza to come, and Tony Danza did come. So the boss was in the house, which was pretty amazing. So he was there, but then Jamie Farr, of course, didn't show up. So then they like filled in Loretta Swit's spot with Morgan Fairchild. It was a really strange, like, mix and match of kind of classic TV and movie personalities.
For that fan base, if they went expecting Loretta Swit and they saw Morgan Fairchild instead, would they know? Like, kind of like blonde TV star for blonde TV star, the old switcheroo? Was that kind of the thinking?
I think my hunch is that was the plan. And I was trying to think, like, I know of Morgan Fairchild. She's a very big name, but I couldn't think of anything I'd ever seen her in.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure is the only thing I can think she was in, and she played like the movie version of Dottie. And that was for like,
I remember that
5 seconds, like, and Morgan Fairchild as Dottie. But,
well, there was some movie where she was like, I think she played like what's the infomercial, like an infomercial host in some. It was not an Adam Sandler movie, but it was like that level of kind of comedy, like in the 90s. And she got electrocuted by a blender or something. It's like a small bit. I have no idea. I'm probably thinking of Loretta Swit.
I think everything I've seen Morgan Fairchild in, it was as herself.
Yeah.
It's usually like self-referential joke or something like that. So
yeah. So they were there. Tim Daly was there, looking very handsome.
Tony Danza, I mean, like,
Tony Danza.
Cannonball Run 2. You can't have Jamie Farr from Cannonball Run 2. You got Tony Danza. That's comparable.
I love it the other day when you were telling me all these people from Cannonball Run 2, which I have never seen. And now I really want to see it because this cast sounds incredible.
Oh my God. Sinatra's in it. It's fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
no, it is. It's great.
He was also not. They couldn't get him for this show either, Sinatra.
Man, they're a tough crowd.
Yeah. So, for what the show was able to put together, and it was a pretty well run show in terms of logistics. It was a great crowd, and like they were excited to be there. Lots of families. A good number of. We'll talk about the age kind of demographics, but it was nice. It was good. It was better than I expected. So that was that top line. A minus. And then in terms of how they related to the vendors, it was kind of strange. So it's a weird setup where they have 3 different rooms. There's the main room, and then there's 2 other rooms in this kind of complex, which is not their fault either. Like, you work with the space you have. But the rooms that were not the main room were down these hallways, and there were stairs, real accessibility issues. Like if you wanted to take an elevator, and there were several folks in like wheelchairs and walkers, you had to go way out of your way and down and back all the way around. Like it was really hard to get anywhere. And even if you don't have accessibility issues, finding those other rooms was really hard because there was, and I want to emphasize this, 0 signage until the second day when enough people complained, I guess, where they had like handwritten, like marker 8.5 by 11 papers like on the wall saying with arrows. So that was not as great because, it was navigating was hard. And then the other part of that is they ended up putting me and my books and several other authors in the room that was promoted as the gaming experience. And so you could go there and play video games, and they were like game competition stuff, which was super cool. But my books are not gamer. I don't write lit RPG, for example. Like my books are not for gamers. And a lot of the folks who came through my room were like Gen Z, even like Gen Alpha. They were really young. And a couple of them stopped, and like they were stopping some of the booths, but they were all like, I wish I had money to spend on this. So it was a really tough room to be in, especially for someone like who writes in my genre.
But you said all the writers were in there?
There were some there. They split the writers between that room and then this other kind of even further, like one level down room. That was a whole other thing.
So they weren't in Artist Alley proper?
No. So Artist Alley is only for illustrators.
That's interesting.
And they only had like 6 of them. So you could have expanded Artist Alley and had creators, which is what I think is pretty typical.
What they do. I think, I've never seen it separated that way. That is unfortunate. And that's kind of one of the things you have to deal with, especially multiple rooms are rough. Like, but you say like it's a con that's big enough to need more space. So they kind of expand, like they probably started in the one room, years ago, and they've grown and grown and grown until they kind of outgrow that space. They kind of do what they can. And it's sometimes it's a roll of the dice of where you get stuck. And I don't even honestly know how to, what you can, there's not much you can do on the day. We've done a show.
Yeah.
We did a show once where it was like we were supposed to have a corner booth and they didn't have it ready for us or whatever. So like, we'll put you on this wall. And so we had 3 sides open, which was kind of nice, but at the same time, it was hard to set up.
Yeah.
Because we try to set up with kind of 2 walls or whatever. But what happened was the concession stand was just next to our booth, and the line from the concession booth blocked our booth for the entire first day of the show. Like we lost 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours of like, hey, bring some ropes. I don't know. Can you move the crowd so people can see us? And I don't know. There's not much you can do on the day. You can just kind of bring that up later. And I think we got comped a booth the next year or something like that. But it can be frustrating. But
it can be.
But how did it work out though?
All in all, it worked out actually okay. It worked out well enough that I have signed up already for the next one. So it was good.
Okay. Because you were sending me stuff the first day and it did not sound like you were getting a lot of traffic. But at the end of it, you're like, I'm going to the next one. And I'm like, oh, well, obviously it turned around. Yeah.
The first morning I think I texted you like 3 hours after it started. And I thought, I've made a huge mistake. It was rough. But then you very wisely counseled me that, the afternoon tends to be better. And you were correct. It was better. So the table setup, I'm really happy with. I put some pictures on my social media. It ended up looking pretty good. There's some tweaks I want to make, but like for my first show back for a while, I thought it felt really good. It looked good. It did, it's funny. Like the young kids were all wearing anime cosplay there's so many fandoms out there that I do not know. They all walked right past it, like not a second look, but you could see like the parents would look. There were some, kind of people like maybe not quite our age, but a little younger, like couples walking through, and they stopped by. So when people did stop, we had great conversations. A lot of them bought books. I more than paid for the table over the weekend. So that's to me, that's primary.
I think that's kind of your baseline goal. Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be a lot better, but it was good. And, again, we made, I met a whole bunch of people who I'd never had heard of me before. Although I did meet someone who had heard of you before, which was a wild conversation.
You mentioned this to me, but tell me this story.
So I was on the second day, the last day, and I was chatting with this woman who came up, and it was like an hour before the con closed. And she was one of my last sales, and we were just chatting. And she was looking at the books, and I'm telling her about the series. And she said, I don't know, this sounds like you probably don't know these books, but there's a series, and I don't remember the name of it, but I think it's like Duck and Cover. She's like, you probably haven't heard of it, but like it reminds me of that. And I said, oh yeah, Ben Wallace's series. She goes, oh, you've heard of him? I said, Ben and I are good friends. I said, we have a YouTube show together. And she like couldn't believe it. She was losing her mind. And her partner, he read your books, and he has a good friend who's in prison right now. And he ordered some of your books. After he read your books, he sent a collection of the series to the prison for his friend. And apparently his friend loved them. And now you are like a big deal in this prison in Florida where this guy's friend is, which is incredible.
I love hearing that story, and you mentioned that. And I've spoken to this guy. I've talked to this guy through email or whatever before. He mentioned like, "Hey, I'm trying to get these into prison," and I thought that sounds uncomfortable. But he was talking about through a more official process. Yeah. No, but that is such a small world. It is funny, and it's
incredible.
Yeah, and as you do the cons all over the place, and yeah, you'll run to people like, where have I heard of this? I know this. I know this.
Yeah.
I did one show in Florida one time. It was a great show. This guy came, it was a 3-day show, and he came by on Friday. He's like, I know this stuff. Where do I know this? I'm like, I can't tell you. Was it this? Was it that? And no, well, I'll be back. And he came back like the next day, and he's like, I know. He was a veteran, and he was in like a veteran chat group online or whatever. And someone had asked like, what's everyone reading? And somebody was reading these books. So he's like, so this is what they were talking about. So he came back and he got the whole series.
Awesome.
It was great, but it was like, that's hilarious to me. That's
it was an incredible story. I was just beside myself. It was awesome.
That is it's so much fun. I had that happen to one person. He was like, you know this guy? I'm like, yes, I do. Only when people ask me that, I don't. I do know that person.
So it was good. It was I got a lot of good data points out of it. Like I learned, which books I should bring, maybe which ones are okay to not bring. I have some good notes on like how much of each book to bring that I do.
Yeah.
So
there's a couple series I bring. I don't even necessarily put them on the table, but I have like a copy of each one there in case someone asks, like, I've read everything. What else you got?
Yeah.
Like, well, I have these, and you go, let me go into the back room, and you pull out the, the 1 or 2 copies you brought of the other stuff. One of the things you mentioned when you told me the story about the lady with the friend, she had bought a bundle. I think you said she bought the bison box.
She bought the buffalo box. Yeah.
So you tried the bundle at the table. How did that go?
Not great. She was the only one who bought it, but I will say this: it made for a nice kind of a nice promotional piece on the table. So you and I talked before about how you use things like the gas mask to bring people over. I don't have anything like that yet. I need to find kind of a visual hook like that. So the buffalo box is not that, but it did, I think, draw people over because there's some color there. There's like a little plushy buffalo head. There's some stickers. So it did work to, I think, kind of make people feel, I wouldn't know if I would even say it drew people in, but it seemed to make people feel kind of comfortable being there, almost as if like, okay, this looks like a legitimate author. Like this looks like a real place where I could trust that I could spend my money here and be okay. It's not just like some guy with oversized, weird cover books trying to take $20 out of my life.
Yeah. And I think you were talking about even further merchandising it. And I think that's a big part of why that works. Like they walk over and go, what am I looking at? What's with the gas mask? What's with I've got a survey meter, an old civil defense radiation detector.
Yeah.
And people come over and like, is that what that is? Yeah. Why is that here? And it's just easier for me. We've talked about the difference here. You're very extroverted. I'm very introverted. But even just starting that conversation at the table, it is so much easier when they ask the question. They come over and like, what's with the gas mask? What's with the bison burger? Thing like, what's bison jerky? What's
Right.
that?
Yeah.
So, and that maybe you have a rack of bison jerky at the like. I'm sure you. Can
That's
get
on
it.
my list of ideas for next time, I think.
Yeah,
So
pin it
we'll
up and just sell that as well.
Yeah. Well, and the people, and one of the things I was reminded of, one of the reasons I really love cons is because of the other vendors. Like there is this kind of like interesting camaraderie that you build with these people you'll probably never see again, but you're kind of like, you're stuck at these tables next to each other for, 8 hours a day for 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And you just, you chat with them and you're all in the same boat, and, you kind of develop these like very temporary relationships that are pretty fun. And on either side of me, on one side I had, there was a person who she did crochet little plushies, and somewhere, I have one here actually. So she did here's an example. I bought this one. It's Mothman.
Cool.
And it's it's good quality. So she had those. And so those drew people over. The person on my other side had stickers, and it was just stickers, but they were of anime characters that all these kids knew. So her placement was great. And those visual tactile things were really drawing people in, and then they would skip over my booth because it's books and books are scary.
And that's exactly, I've told you in the past, that's exactly where the twisted spirit animals came from. I saw people with stickers. I saw people with colorful things getting attention. Like, I need something like that at my table.
Yeah.
And then I don't do anything to make things easier on myself. So it became a whole thing, but it's just, I know another author. He has a zombie series as well. I've run into him at several shows. I talked to him a lot. He's a really good guy. He started selling Stitch merchandise. Like he would get in actual merchandise of different properties and all that. And now he'll go to shows and just sell Stitch. Like his books are one little corner, but he has a giant corner booth full of different items. And he just found they were so popular and such a draw. He primarily does that and goes, I also have books,
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's fascinating, but I'm glad. I know you tried a lot of new things this time, and it sounds like we've talked about in the past too. Like, I think as long as you're covering your table, that's a good financial goal.
Yeah.
But there's so many other things you can take away from a con other than just it'd be great if it was, always a windfall, but especially being new to the area and stuff like that, right? Like, I don't know if you got the chance to connect with any of the authors or any of the folks.
A bit, yeah. And I actually had a lot of people who stopped by the booth to say, like, are you a local author? And that was one of their first questions. And now I can say, like, yeah, local, 90 minutes up the road. And I would say, I'm in Stanton. They were like, oh, okay, yeah, you're local. Mm-hmm. And then that, like, you could tell they relaxed a little bit. I don't know exactly what it is that makes people feel better if you're a local author, but I guess I do. I guess that's not true. But, the fact that they asked that question means it's really important to them. Yes. And it was really cool. The other thing I would say from the numbers standpoint is if I had jumped back into these and done, like C2E2 again, for example, like we talked about before, that's like an $1,100 table. So that one, maybe I don't make that money back. Like I probably would have done better there, but I probably wouldn't have done that much better there. So this was a really nice price point, nice size con for me to kind of dip my toes back in the water. It was a pretty inexpensive table. It was like $190. Made that back the first day. So the second day, even though it was a little slower, it was all just extra. So it all worked out. It all worked out really nicely.